Welcome back to What My Dad Does, and today we're fitting an internal door. So, first things first, I'm going to start with a top tip for you. If your door comes in one of these plastic sheets, a good tip is to make sure you cut it just at the bottom and one side so you can, when you take it off, use it afterwards. You'll just slide it back over the door and it will protect that door from any splashes of paint and whatever is going to be flying around later on. If you're going to cut this with a Stanley knife, obviously make sure you don't cut the door. It will damage it, obviously. So take that off. That's tip out the way. Secondly, I'm fitting a pre-finished FD30 fire door, and that matters for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I'll be fitting 3 hinges. The door you're fitting, I don't know what that is, but if it's a hollow door, you might only want to be fitting 2 hinges. Up to you. Check it out online, see what weights you've got on your hinges and stuff like that. But I'm fitting 3 hinges here, 4-inch ball bearing butt hinges. Secondly, this is pre-finished, so there's no making good on it afterwards. I would suggest that even if you've got a door which you can make good, that you concentrate on these hinge placements and get them as tight as possible. There's nothing worse than going into someone's house where they fitted a door and there's huge gaps all around where the hinge has been fitted. It just looks terrible. Even if it's been filled and painted over, you can see it, it's not great. Take your time, concentrate, get it as tight as possible, and it will look much better in the long run. So where am I going to fit my hinges? Well, I always do my top hinge 150 millimeters down and then fit the hinge. The bottom hinge 225 millimeters up and then fit the hinge. And the middle hinge I always put in between the 2 hinges, straight in the center of the 2 hinges. This middle hinge, there's different people have different ideas. Some people like to fit it higher up, and definitely the top of the door is taking more weight and more stress, so they prefer to fit the 2 hinges higher up here. Personally, I don't like to do that. It looks a bit too commercial for me. I prefer the look of it in the middle, and I've never personally had any issues with that, so I'm quite happy to recommend it. But if you've got a chippy mate who's saying, no, fit it higher up, and that's absolutely fine, that's up to you. Also, the distance I just told you, the 150 mil and the 225, that can vary as well. Some people fit them slightly lower, slightly higher, as long as the top and bottom one are within a certain range, which you can find online, then that will be okay. But that's where I do mine. Never had any issues, and it looks quite nice when it's finished, I think. So the first thing to do is to take your hinge, and there is a correct way to fit a hinge. If you look at the one I'm using, you'll see that this plate is literally fixed in 3 places to the middle shaft, and that is the bit that's going to go on the frame. The bit there with the 2 hinges, and then this is cut, this bit goes on the door. Okay, so make sure you fit that the correct way around. The first thing to do is to sit your hinge on your mark, 150 millimeters down. And what we're going to do, we're going to just place it flat down the door, this side, flat onto the edge of the door, and draw around it. And you need to draw around it with a very sharp pencil and get it as tight to the edge of this hinge as you can. If you obviously don't get it tight to the edge of that hinge and then you go and chop that out, your hole's going to be too big. So you don't want to do that. You want to get it as tight as possible. And I've marked these 3 where I need them on the door. So the next thing you want to do is use your chisel. I'm guessing that as you're attempting to fit a door, you know how to use a chisel. But I set my chisel just 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters inside the line I've marked. I would rather chop this out and have it too small, so I can just slightly make it a tiny bit bigger here and there, so the joint is really tight when I'm finished, then chop it out now to the line and find that it's too big. So always, obviously, with your chamfer, in towards the bit you're chopping out. If you use it the other way around, you're going to split this. And the whole idea of just chopping around this line, especially on a door like this where this is an oak veneer, is to just literally break the veneer. What I don't want to do when I'm chiseling out is have it split right the way down the door. Obviously I want to keep this as it is. So you chop round, so when you're chopping out, it finishes at the line you've chopped. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just bang around each of these hinge lines. Only want to go a couple of millimeters deep, that's all. Just break the veneer and then we'll get chopping out. Okay, so I've chopped all the way around. These are now good to be chopped out. Now, to be honest, I normally use a router to get rid of this bit in the middle here. I use it because it's quicker. I know it's the perfect depth, and also I don't get any splits. It works out really nice. So if you've got a router, you can do that. I'll do 2 of these with a router in a second. But for the people that will be using a chisel, I'll just show you how we do that, probably on this middle one, I guess. So really, if you've cut the top here, just start close to it, little bit away, move back, next little bit, etc. so on until you get back to the hinge. Don't start at the back of the hinge and try and knock the entire lot out, because it can, the timber can have a grain in it and it can split and dive deep. You'll ruin this edge. Just everything, do it slow, do it careful. We'll start up here, little bit, work back, and then we'll go a little bit deeper. And we just want to get to the thickness of, lost the hinge, but we'll get to just the thickness of the hinge, so the hinge sits flush with either side. So I'll go ahead and start chiseling this out, and we'll see what it's like in a second. Okay, so that's chiseled out, and I've just checked it with my hinge. Everything's nice and tight. It's flat, it's not rocking, and it is flush to either side, so that's good. I'm going to do the other 2 with my router, just because I prefer that. It's quicker, it's easier, I think, gets a better flat base on it and stuff. So I'll get those 2 cut out as well, and then we'll fit the hinge. So they are now finished. All 3 hinges are chopped out. Stupidly, I forgot to press record on the camera, so I haven't got any footage of me routing those out, so I apologise for that. But all I do is I just route the majority of it out, and then I use my chisel just to go around the edges and just tidy it up, offer my hinge up to it. And I did on all the hinges have to chop them just fractionally bigger, but it has meant that the hinges are really nice and tight in their little pockets. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to fit 2 of the hinges, normally the top and bottom one. I keep a hinge behind just so I can then mark it on the frame. And controversially, I like to pilot drill my holes before I put the screw in them. And I know some people say they don't like that because they like the screw to be really as tight as they can be. Obviously the screws are, you don't want the screws pulling out or anything. If I've got a 3mm screw to put in here, I like to just pilot drill with a 1mm drill bit. And the reason I like to do that is I like to get my screw dead in the center of these holes. And I find that if I don't pilot drill it, the screw will sit itself to one side and can have the effect of pulling the hinge out or something like that. So I like to make sure I've pilot drilled. I've never had an issue with doing it like that, but I can understand that some people will not like that. But it's your choice. I like to say I'm going to pilot drill these and then put my screws in. The other reason is as well, I'll do the same in the frame, because obviously when you hang this door, it's not going to fit in the hole. It's not going to fit in the hole because you're going to have to plane the leading edge. So the door will come back off, you'll plane the leading edge, put it back on. It's still not going to fit because you won't have taken enough. So you'll have to take it back off, take a little bit more, put it back on. And even if that's okay, it'll have to come back off anyway when they fit the carpet, and then we put back on. Basically, these screws are coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And I find that I've had it with carpenters before where they proper hammer drill those screws in. And by the time they finish taking it on and off, the screw heads are knackered. They're completely useless, which in a few months' time, if you need to ease the door or something, is a real pain if you can't get those screws out. And I find it doesn't happen as much if you've just run a 1mm drill bit through there. It's just not, you don't have to hammer them in as hard. So they come in and out a little bit easier, and it doesn't knacker the screw head. So yeah, I prefer to do that. As I say, it's your choice. It might be a bit controversial doing that. But anyway, I'm going to fit these 2 hinges. Actually, I'm going to fit all 3 because I've got about 15 doors to do in this house, so I've got plenty of spare hinges. But if you're only fitting 1 door, you need to keep 1 hinge just so you can use it to mark around on the frame. But I'm going to fit all 3, and then we'll look at marking the frame out. Okay, so the 3 hinges are now on, and we're on to the next stage, which is to chop our hinges on the frame. So what you need to do is some very accurate measuring. I know I said 150 millimeters down to the top of this hinge, and that is actually 151. So what you need to do is you need to give it a slight gap around your frame of, I normally leave 2 millimeters. So if that's measuring 151 millimeters, I will mark on my frame 153 millimeters, and so on and so forth for the others. So I'll measure down to the hinge again, and then down to the top of that hinge again, and add on 2 millimeters and mark it on my frame. And then I'm going to draw around my hinge again, and then I'm going to route those out. And that will leave a 2 millimeter gap across the head of your door. Especially on fire doors, you don't want much more than 2 millimeters as a gap. And you might notice in here as well, I've got this rebate. This is because I've got to fit a smoke seal around this door. You probably won't have that on your frame. A note about frames: if you're fitting to a pre-existing frame, if hopefully it's a good frame, it'll make your life a lot easier if it is. If it's not a good frame, check the side you're hanging the door on. Hopefully that is good, if nothing else. If it's not, then I would recommend chopping this bit of plaster away and trying to alter that leg, because if this is out, your door will probably swing open. It'll throw everything else out. I have done a video on fitting frames, and hopefully if it's a pre-existing one, it means that somebody's already tinkered with it and made it okay, but that's definitely not always the case. And you won't really know until you hinge your door and put it in, whether the rest of it's all square and stuff like that. But yeah, I would probably alter the leading edge if it's not correct. If this is correct and this one is not correct, then you might get away with planing a bit of the door and stuff like that, depending on how bad it is. But you don't really want the door never staying pushed to or left open, always closing itself or something like that, because it's not square or level. So you need to put a level on that and check. I've fitted this frame, so I know this one's okay. But yeah, so I'm just going to put my hinges in, get them chopped out, and then we'll look about hanging the door. Okay, good. So these hinges are now chopped out as well. One thing I've come across that I didn't realise, this pre-routed out groove here for the fire strip is actually deeper than my hinge. So I'm going to have to pack the back of this hinge to stop it tipping in. So I'm going to use some little plastic spacers that I use when I fit windows, just down there. If you see me doing that, just ignore that. I don't think you'll have this situation with this fire strip. So you won't need to do this. So just ignore it. But that's what you'll see is me putting that there before I put the hinge there. And that's all I'm doing. I'm packing the back of that hinge out just because this pre-routed groove is deeper than my hinge groove. Okay. Right. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pick the door up and I'm going to stand the outside edge on an old chisel just to raise it off the ground, just sort of 20 mil or so. And then I'm going to get the bottom hinge located in there. And I'm going to get one screw in that, and I'm going to put it about 95% home. I'm not going to do it up tight, because then after that, I'm going to pick this up, locate it in this hinge slot. I'm going to put a screw in that, and then I'm going to put a screw in that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if it closes. Now, it almost certainly won't close. It will probably hit that because normally you have to plane the leading edge off. But then I will be able to check the head's okay, everything else is okay, the hinge is in the right place, etc., etc. I'm not going to put every single screw in because it means I have to take every single screw back out. When you do check this edge, just make sure though that these hinges are flat and haven't pulled out slightly, because obviously you'll get an untrue reading. But I'm going to do one hinge in each and just check it, and we'll see where we are. So let's do that. Right, so that's hung, and it's very close to that leading edge. It is actually just catching there at the very bottom. So I just need to plane a tiny bit off that, but otherwise the head is really good. Yeah, everything's really good. I don't know if you've watched my video on fitting door frames, but that's why I was saying how important it is to make sure you get your door lining, your door frame correct, because it just makes this bit really easy. We've just hinged it, and that's basically it. It's a tiny bit of leading edge to be planed off, and that's it really. So yeah, so that's good. So I'll take this back off, I'll plane that, and then rehang it, put all the screws in, make sure it's okay. And after that, obviously, we'll be on to door handles. So I'll do another video afterwards on door handle. And so there you go, a tiny bit of planing, and it's fitting perfectly. Yeah, that's absolutely lovely. Quite happy with that. I'll show you a close-up of one of the hinges. Okay, so you can see here just how lovely and tight that hinge is. And that looks like a lovely job when people see that. It looks professional. You know, really with building work, you want nobody to notice it. Nobody notices it, you know it's good. If somebody notices it, you know it's probably bad. But hopefully nobody's going to notice those hinges. They're going to walk straight past them and just think, yep, it's been done correct. And that's it. So I know I said I would show you the doorstop, but I think I'll do that in another video because this video is getting a little bit long. So I'll do one on the doorstop next, and then I'll do one on the handle, fitting the handle and the latch on this one, so you can follow that. Anyway, I hope that helps. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've got any questions, please leave me a comment below and I'll try and get back to you. There's always stuff that as soon as I finish videoing, I think, oh, I didn't tell them that, oh, I didn't tell them this, oh, I should have given them a tip on that. But, you know, if there are any questions, let me know. But otherwise, hopefully you'll be able to hinge your door in a nice professional way and it will look and fit great. Best of luck, and I'll see you soon.